Did you know that up to 70% of adults have faced trauma, with childhood trauma increasing the risk of severe outcomes like addiction or suicide by up to 5,000%? But there's hope. Joining me in today's conversation are experts from the Marcus Institute, Dr. Sarah Gottfried and Dr. Anna Tobia, and we'll take a dive into the impact of trauma and how we can turn even the most profound emotional wounds into pathways for a healthier, more resilient life. Your new journey starts now. Trauma is a word that originated in ancient Greek and Latin to describe the experience of physical injury. But over the centuries, we've learned that emotional injuries have an equally powerful effect on health. So the word trauma has expanded to cover those wounds as well. Just like with physical traumas, some emotional wounds heal without a problem, some leave scars that may affect how we function or feel, and some debilitate us, causing significant impairment in our general health and how we navigate the world around us. To be clear, physical traumas cause emotional health issues in addition to the physical injury, and likewise, emotional traumas can cause physical health issues in addition to the psychological symptoms. A great example of this can be found in animal research. In the Canadian Yukon, the snowshoe hare attracts natural foes, like lynx and coyotes. When too many of these stealthy hunters enter the scene, the hare population plummets, but much more than it would from just being hunted. The trauma from the constant threat of being prey and observation of others falling victim to the predators causes female hares to eat less, mate less, and have fewer babies. This leads to the population of the hunters plummeting as well. Hence, the change in the hare's brain chemistry creates a true wildlife drama, or trauma. Whether hare or human, one common theme in significant traumatic experiences is a jolted sense of self and safety in the world. This reminds me of the biblical story many of you may be familiar with of Adam and Eve. Recall that the first part of their lives was idyllic and stress-free. And then wham! In one fell swoop, they were facing unimaginable heartbreak and distress. Expulsion from Eden, the place where everything was safe and secure. Imagine the inner turmoil of shattered innocence and lost paradise. What expulsions from Eden have you experienced? And how have those events affected the direction of your life? The term trauma can be confusing given the recent uptick in its use.
All I have are negative thoughts.
From the big screen to gripping novels to the endless scroll of social media, trauma is being underscored at every turn. It's not just a buzzword, it's a bona fide pop culture player. Have you heard the word trauma talk? It means posting about struggles with mental health on TikTok. Hashtag trauma on TikTok now has about 10 billion views. The word has gone viral, there's no denying it. And while that's great for raising awareness of trauma, what can get lost in the overuse of the term trauma is the real significance of it and how those big traumas take root within us, both physically and psychologically.
It's been 15 years, dear. Put it out of your mind. Don't let it drive you mad again.
To unravel the concept of trauma, we must grasp its essence and distinguish it from ordinary daily stress. Trauma is a powerful neurological reaction in the emotional structures of the brain, triggered by events that jolt our sense of well-being in the world. Think accidents, disasters, major loss, abuse, persecution, rape, witnessing a murder as examples. Meanwhile, stress accompanies our daily struggles. Trauma is stress on steroids. Picture this, stress is like your daily traffic jam, but trauma, that's an emotional earthquake, shaking you to your core. For example, you might remember seeing this video clip amid the chaotic news coverage of 9/11.
What came down? We crashed. The other trade center's down. It's down. It's down.
Even over 2 decades later, this clip may appear during anniversary recollections of 9/11. The man you see in that clip is Shannon Stapleton, a Reuters cameraman. He's also the lens man behind the poignant photograph of Father Michael Judge, the first officially recorded casualty of that cataclysmic day. Though he's captured both despair and tragedy throughout his career, nothing impacted him quite like 9/11.
Really affected me mentally and psychologically. I went through several years of having very bad dreams. And when I would have those dreams, I would ask Father Judge to try to please help me. I mean, I had never met him.
While Stapleton's portfolio continues to grow with professional accolades in the years that followed, the emotional toll of that day lingers on.
I hate seeing helicopters around here because that always makes me think of that day.
This underscores how many of us can compartmentalize the effects of trauma and appear like everything is fine, even though there are tremendous struggles underneath the veneer. Avoidance of cues that remind us of trauma are a hallmark of unresolved trauma. In this case, it's helicopters, but I've seen traumatized cancer survivors who avoid getting necessary checkups to avoid the awful reminder of coming that close to death. I mentioned the late great Lena Horne. It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way that you carry it. Peeling back another layer, you'll encounter terms like big T and small t trauma. Though they may sound like rap lyrics, they're commonly used terms in psychology. Imagine big T trauma as those jaw-dropping events that make the headlines.
Tonight, the death toll on Maui remains at 111 lives lost.
Small t trauma involves those quieter but impactful experiences, like a tough divorce, being unfairly fired from a job, or a publicly humiliating moment that haunts you. While they might not be newsworthy, their emotional impact is still powerful.
There are these smaller traumas that can accumulate and can act as almost a bigger T trauma, depending on your response to it.
Dr. Sarah Gottfried is a Harvard-educated physician scientist and a 4-time New York Times bestselling author. She also leads the Precision Medicine program at Thomas Jefferson University's Marcus Institute. To deepen our exploration of trauma, I also invited Dr. Tobia to join the discussion. Besides being a leading clinical psychologist and expert on Neuro Emotional Technique for traumatic stress, which she teaches in college credit courses at Jefferson, she's also a 2-time top doctor in Philadelphia. Some people might be thinking, well, big losses happen, big events happen. Why do anything about them? Doesn't time heal all wounds?
Oh, I wish it were that way. It would really be very comforting to know that just the passage of time would allow our nervous system to relax, but actually, it doesn't work that way. Our nervous system is designed to protect us. And so this isn't that it's somebody self-sabotaging, it's actually self-preservation, because the nervous system needs to remember difficult things so it can prepare for them. So when these traumatic experiences happen, our nervous system is designed to remember them so that we can protect for them in the future.
The limbic system in our brain is where these emotions and memories of trauma are processed. The amygdala is a component of the limbic brain that acts as an alert center, tagging certain experiences as threats to help you react quickly when you re-experience them in the future. While helpful in dodging real danger, this can overgeneralize, turning everyday situations into anxiety triggers. For example, a combat veteran whose brain learned to go into automatic protection mode at the sound of an explosive may now have an overreaction in his brain when hearing any loud noise. It is an automatic form of self-preservation that needs to be unlearned, which isn't always easy to do and often takes innovative strategies, as we shall see. Unfortunately, when trauma is frequently re-triggered, the heightened state of alert can take a toll on our physical health, leading to issues like chronic inflammation, which can compromise immune function and exacerbate medical problems.
When I'm looking for these things, these downstream consequences, I guarantee you I'm going to be looking upstream to see if trauma is part of what is driving those downstream symptoms.
Now that we've scratched the surface of trauma, let's look at some numbers that paint the bigger picture. Over 2/3 of children will face at least one traumatic event by age 16. A whopping 70% of US adults have gone through some form of trauma, with 20% developing post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. That's 24 million people, almost as many as the entire population of Australia. And don't forget the economic impact. untreated trauma-related substance abuse alone costs the US a staggering $160 billion each year. When my mother died, it was sudden in a very traumatic, tragic way. And it really jolted me. And it was something that really required me to utilize the resources in integrative health that I'm always telling other people to do.
And then I would say, after experiencing the pandemic, most of us have not escaped a traumatic experience.
Experts say it has never been this bad, how we're seeing it now. According to the CDC,
a record number of people died by suicide in the United States last year.
Apparently, most of us haven't dodged trauma's bullet. And while various therapies offer some relief, significant gaps in effective treatments still haunt the field.
I've done a lot of talk therapy over the course of my life. I probably have spent 20 years in different individual psychotherapy. And I was shocked to learn that only about a third of people with trauma who go through talk therapy resolve their symptoms. A third. That's pretty appalling. It's quite expensive, it takes a long time, and we've got to do better for our patients with trauma.
Believe it or not, 1 in 5 American adults has received some form of mental health treatment. According to another study, over 30% of those battling depression find themselves stuck in an emotional quagmire known as treatment-resistant depression. They've tried the standard cures, yet the inner agony persists. Now, with all these facts and figures we've just dropped, you must be thinking, is there an actual light at the end of this doom and gloom tunnel? Well, we're definitely not here to drown you in despair. In fact, there just might be a glimmer of hope for patients and families seeking relief. Everything from digestive health to chronic fatigue to chronic pain can be complicated by unresolved emotional traumas. Here's the good news. There's a lot of things that you can do in an integrative health model to reconcile those traumas and have a better quality of life. So what motivates me to spend the time on social media and creating the Dr. Monty Show and things like that? It's really to get the word out about what we do, because I see lives change every day from the integrative approaches that we have and that we provide for patients, but I feel like the rest of the world needs to know about it. So the integrative approach I mentioned is what we call integrative medicine. What is integrative medicine? As the ancient Greek philosopher Plato aptly noted, the part can never be well unless the whole is well. That essence captures what we aim to achieve with integrative medicine. Think of it as a medical dream team. It combines the rigorous science of conventional Western medicine with the ancient wisdom of holistic approaches. It's about addressing not just the symptoms, but the root causes of illness, creating a health roadmap that's unique to each patient. We also utilize the latest technologies and testing assessments and incorporate emerging scientifically guided therapies. And the first transformational approach we're exploring, Neuro Emotional Technique, or NET for short. NET was created by chiropractor Scott Walker in the 80s. He had a burning question. Why didn't some treatments stick? Unexpectedly, the answer became clear to him after he attended a seminar. There, a doctor mentioned that when her patients thought about work, their spines would go out of place again before they even left the clinic. This insight lingered and sparked a new idea within him. The next day, Walker used a fresh approach on a car accident survivor who had undergone numerous unsuccessful chiropractic treatments. This time, the patient was asked to visualize the traumatic memory of her accident while being adjusted. Bringing the emotional experience into the therapy made all the difference, and she healed remarkably well. Hence, Walker finally found the missing link to unresolved physical healing, which couldn't be more obvious: the unresolved emotions of traumatic experiences. Inspired, Walker dove into Freudian psychology and Pavlovian conditioning, which includes the concept of conditioned responses. Imagine your unresolved emotional experiences are like a broken record, continuously repeating the same troublesome tunes. They echo through your mind and body, creating patterns of dysfunction in both. To break this endless loop, Walker developed NET. This groundbreaking method aims to rewind and reset the neuroemotional response, paving the way for real, lasting healing. Over time, the NET protocol has evolved, incorporating elements of focused breathing and ancient Chinese medicine pulse points. At the Marcus Institute, we use the groundbreaking PET MRI machine, of which fewer than 50 can be found in the US, to verify the effectiveness of NET.
Look in this area here, going up to the front part of the brain.
Wow.
There's really nothing there, I mean, which is good.
Which is a lot different when we started a few hours ago.
Right. Exactly.
At our clinic at Thomas Jefferson University's Marcus Institute, we encountered a patient named Jin, who was going through a traumatic life event, the recent sudden loss of her brother, with whom she was very close.
I'm sad. He was such a big part of my life. I feel like there's a part missing to me.
It's expected to have a grief reaction when there's a sudden loss. Sudden losses are harder, and in this case, there were other things going on that made the loss complicated.
But then I get angry at him, and he was just too young.
The level of distress Jin was experiencing was significant. In terms of the level of distress you're feeling on a scale from 0 to 10.
10.
We wanted to help her. Eliminating the grief wasn't the goal, but making it more bearable definitely was.
My blood pressure's been a little unstable lately. He did die of a heart attack, just him being a little older than I, and family history of heart disease. Now I'm thinking I'm gonna die.
Well, we want to help you. We have an excellent psychologist, Dr. Tobia, who you've met, who specializes in the Neuro Emotional Technique, which is really created for helping people through distressing times and distressing events. Dr. Tobia uses NET because of its high efficiency. So instead of having Jin lie on the couch for several years, like an old school psychotherapy, she instead employs a process that may seem more in line with the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Why remember a destructive love affair? Here at Lacuna, we have perfected a safe, effective technique for the focused erasure of troubling memories.
If you recall, Jim Carrey's character needed to record all of his memories of his ex-girlfriend so they could be erased.
Any risk of brain damage? Technically, the procedure is brain damage.
With NET, the process is similar, but the goal is the opposite: to face those memories in a way that allows the nervous system to reconcile them, not forget them. As the great poet Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. So even though Jin already told us her level of distress is a 10 out of 10, we still need to record her story and have her listen to it in the scanner before and after the NET intervention, so we can measure the results of the treatment the same way we did in the meditation demonstration. Two conditions, one is neutral and one is a script of the traumatic issues that she was discussing with me earlier.
And that way we get to see how that reaction to hearing the trauma and thinking about the trauma affects her brain.
It's been very hard. He was young, a beautiful person. He was my best friend, and now he's gone.
'Cause nothing hurts like a broken heart from someone who loved you.
Like if you look at this image here, the red areas are areas that have been activated. So this is all of her frontal lobe areas that have been activated as the result of thinking about the trauma.
The stressful situation.
The stressful situation. And then, it's your frontal lobe that's gonna focus in on it. That was the worst part of that Neuro Emotional Technique study, because we would really traumatize people in the scanner and they would be crying and feel bad, but we made a lot of them get a lot better.
Yeah.
So that was rewarding. It almost looks like the brain's on fire a little bit, It's,
This is something that was constantly going on in your brain. It was getting in the way of you functioning. And so we know that if that's activated all the time, that just isn't in the brain. It's the whole rest of the nervous system and the body is affected by that.
She really came in a tremendous amount of distress. Her stress was off the scale. She wasn't sleeping, she's been having heart palpitations, tremendous anxiety, a significant level of distress in all areas of her life. She's noticed changes in her appetite, she feels like her brain is foggy, she's having difficulty concentrating, trouble connecting with family members. It's caused a diffuse range of problems for her. And we focused using the Neuro Emotional Technique on the stress she's been experiencing with a recent traumatic event that has really compromised her ability to function.
Dr. Tobia, who's been using NET for 2 decades, spends 2 hours after the first brain scan working with Jin to help her brain and body rewire the stress response she is having to losing her brother.
The way that we're going to do that is I'm going to have you hold one hand like this, and you're going to put the palm of your hand where the face of a watch would go, and then your fingers are going to come around your wrist like that, just resting gently on those pulse points. And then I want you to put your other hand, across your forehead like that. And just look at me for 1 second, and I want you to just put your hand just like that and close your, there you go, that's perfect. And just lean forward, resting your arms on the desk, and I want you to take some slow, deep breaths in and out. That's good, that's perfect. Just slow, deep breaths until you feel your body relax. That's nice.
Jin then goes back into the scanner and listens to her script again. Will the NET treatment really make a difference when Jin listens to the same recording a second time?
This is to test if you know what you're doing. No pressure. I'm convinced that somebody put a brain into it somewhere.
It scans so many brains, it now knows what to do.
It might be the chief MRI technologist.
Maybe. So now when you look in this area here, going up to the front part of the brain,
wow.
there's really nothing there. I mean, basically it's like another memory as opposed to being a distressing memory. And so your frontal lobes really, are just not reacting very much, which is good.
Which is a lot different than when we started a few hours ago.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. But what's that?
He said I'll sleep well tonight.
That's good.
For that short time she was with me, it was unbelievable. I feel a very big atomic bomb off my shoulders. I feel relaxed.
That's great to hear. Incorporating NET takes a holistic approach that can be a game changer for someone in distress like Jin.
One of the things that's been most remarkable about working with NET for 20 years is how much better patients feel quickly. That often it takes years of psychotherapy to really get the kind of results that we can get in a handful of sessions. And patients feel like it changes all the areas of their life. So even though we may address one aspect of their life, what happens is when the brain begins to relax, they're able to experience improvements in a vast array of areas or in multiple areas of their life.
Thank you for joining us in this vital conversation on trauma and healing. I hope today's discussion has provided insight into the profound impact trauma can have, but more importantly, to the incredible potential for recovery and growth. There are powerful tools and approaches available to help you reclaim your well-being. I'm Dr. Dan Monti. Until next time, be well.